What's the center of gravity for the intelligent enterprise? How can companies orchestrate and govern data flows across increasingly complex environments? Join me as I interview Michael Ekert, VP of EIM and Big Data Product Management at SAP, as we explore the remarkable power and flexibility of the SAP Data Hub.
SAP Data Hub is a new product from SAP. It's a year and a half old. What we've done is we've taken our existing EIM assets about data integration, data quality, data refining, metadata management, governance, cataloging, and built a whole new solution, how we look at the full, if you want to say, the full data flows across your on-premise enterprise apps, your enterprise data warehouses, data marts, data lake, onto cloud, which you may have also running them on cloud, or object stores, using machine learning services, and how do you build data flows that go across all of them? Not just a point-to-point solution, but how do we take and integrate, whether you have existing deployments of data services or BW data flows, or you have existing Google Pub Sub, how do you connect them all together, right? And build this data flow process that underpins your business processes.
And so I kind of view this as a stepping stone to the cloud and a stepping stone to really the future of data management. Because if you think about the old days, it was all about ETL or maybe change data capture, but it was all of these sort of one-off, bespoke style movements of data back and forth, and there was no real ability to orchestrate that or to streamline that or to optimize the flow of things. And Data Hub does all that stuff, right?
Yes, I mean, I would say there's still a need for those point solutions. So I always kind of say it's like the public transportation network. You know, we have trains, which you could view to the batch, big bulk ETL processes. But then you've got replication, you've got streaming, you've got the new type of Kafka, Google Pub Sub, all of these type of open source ones. How do you actually look across all of them and unify them all? So I'd say it's very similar to what we did with HANA, is that we took a step backwards and said, it's not just the point solutions, you know, it's not the tools, it's what you do with them. Right. So if you think about it, it's the infrastructure for the whole city, and if you want to add new capabilities and be more microservice architecture, like take advantage of the latest thing, how do we make it very open? But then how do you take into account ETL, replication, so data integration, data quality and cleansing, data governance. So when it comes from data governance through to metadata governance, you know, another category we see is information catalog. Right. How do we actually put them all together that you can understand all the data independent of what actually is executed underneath? And architect that across and be understanding what is built by each one of your local developers, then orchestrated on a global level.
Well, and this also allows you to future-proof your environment in many, many ways, because versioning is always such a challenge, right? Which operating system is this running on? Which version of the operating system? You change any of that foundational stuff, and historically, that's a big problem. You now have to upgrade the system, you have to test everything again, you got to make sure it all works still. And what happens with Kubernetes inside of the SAP Data Hub, or as the enabling technology underneath, is that I almost want to call them wrappers. Inside that container is instructions for which operating system and which version, etc. So you don't have to worry about that stuff anymore, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that would be, one of our major design criteria was to really take advantage of the innovations like Kubernetes from Google. Now it's open source, and containers, like you said, is like if we have operators, how do we say a certain version of Python, a certain operating system is deployed just for that operation, and then can be orchestrated with something with a different version? If you look at the historical part, was very monolithic infrastructure. You know, you had your ETL, you had your processing, it ran on one server, one version of an operating system, one version of a runtime like Java, and everything had to be upgraded at once. What we're now seeing is that people want to be able to bring different operators with different definitions, check them in as Docker libraries, and then orchestrate them at scale. And this also, as you said, is about future-proofing. So people want that microservice architecture to be able to say, maybe now I use TensorFlow, and I have a runtime running that on-premise, but then maybe I want to switch it to run TensorFlow with Google. Right. Or I want to use an Azure data service, or I want to use a service that's replace my Hadoop, or say Hadoop, I'm going to augment it with object stores, and use Amazon S3 buckets. Right. And we're starting to see a lot of customers revisiting their data lake, but they also want to do it in a way that they say, okay, I want to get value out of what I already have, like a Teradata system. Right. But then also I want to have Hadoop, but I want to have object stores. I want to bring an IoT that's going to run in the cloud and connect it to my on-premise. That's right. And that's kind of the world now. It's going to be that hybrid, on-premise, multi-cloud. That's exactly and you have to be able to deploy your application to run where the data is.
Well, it's like the Rosetta Stone for data in a lot of ways, right? It almost kind of reminds me of a data-oriented enterprise service bus at scale.
Yes.
Right?
I would say that's a good way of looking at it. I mean, it's not replacing everything, which is one of the big other design criteria we had was, if you've got 10 years worth of ETL process built into data services, you have business BW process chains, you have PI for your business BPM, or if you have Google Pub Sub, we want to be able to connect those together and say, okay, we have a development team, they use that technology, but we want to wire it and orchestrate it and have the data flows from ERP going into Google Pub Sub in the cloud and be able to orchestrate all that together without replacing. So, you know, if you want to say the analogy on public transportation is, SAP may not deliver the bus system, but maybe the ETL is from SAP, but maybe open source is the Ubers that we want to connect, but you're going to have to put those together. And as you said, future-proof. You know, Elon Musk Hyperloop is going to have to be connected into the public infrastructure. He's not going to just drop people out in the desert. So it has to be future-proof to say, how will we fit these in? And how do you have new things like scooter rental or things like that that will also be at the train station, at the bus stops, and the taxi ranks will have Uber stop-offs. And I think that's really if you want to look at it, it's people looked at the individual architecting of applications, but very few business processes stop and start just within one application. Business processes is stretching across the data landscape too.
Well, see, this is so interesting for so many reasons, and we should explain to the audience now, you can also set thresholds and priorities and other things of that nature such that when a job comes through that's really important, the CEO wants this done, for example, you can set a high priority to that, so it's going to scale out as needed. And that's the thing, right, is you can scale out as needed, so it's not just a marshalling area that's a static size, it's a marshalling area that can expand and contract as needed, right?
Yeah, I think if you think in the past we bought servers for solutions. You bought a piece of software, you bought servers. They sat and waited there for the processing. With Kubernetes, you have a serverless compute infrastructure. It's that kind of server farm. It's available for everybody. So we're able to say with our operators, which we call the actions we take, it could be extracting data, it could be transforming, it could be machine learning algorithm, it could be Node.js being run, it could be R code, and you can actually specify it to say this is the library I want to run, and then when you run it, how much memory CPU, and then you can actually say which operators are grouped together, so they're using the same data and memory, or if it scales automatically based on data bursting, for example. And then when it's finished, it gives back the memory CPU and the container shut down until it's needed for someone else. So I kind of joke, it's back to the timeshare of the mainframe again. So it's kind of the what old is new again, but at a much more commodity scale level.
Things like governance and data quality and single version of the truth and golden record and all that stuff really do require, at the end of the day, that you have one central marshaling area for managing this information. If you have multiple centers, then you really cannot have governance, right? And so I see not only is the SAP Data Hub the stepping stone to this new future of multi-cloud environments, but it's also an enabler for actual data governance.
Yeah, I think visibility into what data's where. If you look at the chief data officer, there's that problem that everybody has copies of data. It's very easy to have copies of data, and they do object stores. It's just FTP it somewhere, email it somewhere. And I think now it's really about how do you connect to the sources, understanding what data is where, understand what data is being published, so data as a service, that we can actually have that, and then also understanding the metadata as it's acted upon the data. So not just data in the databases, which we will say a lot of the historical view was it, but then how do you also know if I'm making changes to the runtime and the design time, that if I'm breaking a policy, and I can say, okay, if this data has to go out of the HR zone of systems, then I must mask social security number, or I must anonymize PII data, and then I'm sending it off to Amazon that maybe they have an application running there. But then people have to look across it. They may not be owners of all the data, but there may be also other teams that consume the data. And of course it's about that, how do I not have to rebuild metadata? Like data scientists, they spend maybe 70%, 80% of the time rebuilding the models, doing SQL. How can they get the right data? They don't just say, give me all the raw data, they can actually say, give me the right master data, give me the right data from ERP, give me this data that comes from this application, and put it in my sandbox, train my algorithm, and then deploy it into the operations, which is also the other problems we see. So it's kind of a whole new way of looking at the bringing of governance to the active runtime. And I would say active metadata governance is something we're really excited about.
That is so cool. Well, folks, SAP Data Hub, this is the future. It's happening right now. Look up Michael Eckert. Get a demo of this stuff. It's amazing. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.